Joe Zekas from YoChicago.com, New Homes Magazine, sitting here with George Thrush. If your kids didn't know what you did and you could take them only to one project that you've done in your life to show them what you had done, what project would you take them to?
Well, that's funny, and I'm not going to answer that. I will say that when I have people in town and want to take them around and show them something, I must tell you the truth. In some ways, I think jazz on the boulevard has so many positive characteristics for the community, for the design. I think the design is great. I love the design. Now,
who was the architect, the lead architect on that? That was
Pat Fitzgerald.
Fitzgerald.
Who was also the architect at 740 Fulton and Halston.
And Pat is a big believer in mixed income housing and the kind of concept that jazz illustrates on those lines too.
Now, Papa George Hames has done a lot of good things with us, and one of them that I liked was Block X, which was won a lot of awards. And as a matter of fact, just recently the
we didn't really talk about that, but that was the first new residential construction in the West Loop in about 40 years also.
That was number one. That was the first new residential construction. The only thing ahead of it had been loft rehabs. There had been some of that.
Well, you had a whole block to work with from scratch there, and it's an interesting aesthetic. We were down there. I was down there with an architecture critic 2 weeks ago who really loved it because he saw some of the commercial kind of aesthetic, industrial kind of aesthetic that you brought into the stairways, for example, in there. And
did he get into the courtyard?
We looked into the courtyard. It's secure, it's gated, but you could see they're beautiful in there.
See, we got the idea some of the idea for that from Italy, where along the west coast of Italy you have these towns.
Portofino?
Right, Portofino, and there are some others farther down, they call it. But in any event, they have these small towns built on the cliff almost, going into the Mediterranean Sea, and you see the people. They all have little balconies, and you see people washing clothes and yelling across the street, the cobblestone street, to somebody on the other balcony across the street. And it's just a wonderful community. It's a feel. You're walking along these cobblestone streets, and there's so much life and conversation, and this was sort of what we tried to create in that inner courtyard of Block X, where the people could, on their balconies, look across the courtyard and can see other people, but they're not so close that it bothers them. But it worked beautifully. I think the owners there find it very attractive. I'm sorry you didn't get into the courtyard.
I think I was in 10 years ago or so when it was under construction. It's been a while. It's 8 years maybe since 98, 99, somewhere around there.
Something like that, yeah.
It's almost 10 years.
You can walk around the whole courtyard, there are benches, and it's worked out beautifully.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for people who haven't been through that history to understand just how much these neighborhoods have transformed.
Yeah, it is.
During that period of time.
Go down and look at the park homes at Lake Meadows on 31st Street.
Lake Meadows and Prairie Shores are really Fort Kramer's biggest legacy, aren't they? They really transformed that piece of the South Side, those two huge developments.
Oh, sure. You know who? Ferd Kramer, incredibly, was the guy who did that. And he went to to New York to get the financing. He was often told me about that, and that was part of a slum clearance program. And do you know exactly when it was? I think it was around
late 50s,
early 50s. I think maybe it was early 50s.
Early to late 50s.
And that was the only one. They had 5 or 6 or 7 of them throughout the country in key locations where there were major slum areas in metropolitan areas. And this is the only one that really worked and has kept up and alive and economically feasible. But this was incredible too. They tore out the worst kind of slum to put those up. And the government, it was a government program.